Hello and good morning to you. Welcome to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. How are you doing today? The 5th day in the month of September. We're super happy to have you here. Thank you once again for joining us. We appreciate your loyalty and your dedication to the station, and we can only continue to give you the best of everything that you expect from us as a broadcast station. Again, welcome to you. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola. If you're listening to us right now, well, if you're familiar with the station, you would know it's time for Trends in the Papers. And if this is your first time tuning in, again, I bid you welcome. It promises to be an exciting episode with us here on radio. This is Trends in the Papers, as earlier introduced. Think of it as your number one go-to source for insightful, thought-provoking conversation, whether it be politics, whether it be the state of the economy, whether it be our financial sector, whatever your expectations are, we are going to keep you informed. We're going to engage you in everything that has to do with the state of the polity. And at the end of the day, we're also going to give you something of a platform for open and respectful dialogue. We can also explore these issues together with emphasis on a respectful space where you can air your opinions. All right. This is not something I'll be doing by myself. As always, aside from giving you the stories, we also like to give you information that you probably did not have access to, so that you're able to put your opinions together when we finally open the phone lines. Of course, I would introduce our analyst for the morning, 𝗬𝗏, who will be giving us insight into the stories. Good morning, 𝗬𝗏.
Yeah, good morning, Babaola. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. It's nice to have you. I don't think we've spoken this week. I've not seen you, 𝗬𝗏. Are you avoiding me?
You know what? It's just been busy, really.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah,
I was just teasing.
right.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have the papers with us: The Guardian, The Nation, Vanguard newspaper, and finally Punch newspaper. I think we should start with The Guardian. There are certain reports on here that I think we should kick off the show with. So The Guardian newspaper, let's start with this report here. Bold reforms leave Nigerians more miserable amid assurances. That is the report. And before we get into that, please forgive me for jumping the gun. I should also remind us that tomorrow we're going to hear the outcome of the back and forth that has been going on with the political parties at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. It's the D-Day, and 𝗬𝗏, I'm sure you're aware of the announcements that there's going to be a live telecast of some kind.
Yes.
Media houses will be there to cover it, and
cameras in the courtroom.
Exactly. So fingers across, tensions are rising. Political parties are dropping statements, expressing their confidence in the outcome of that judgment. But 𝗬𝗏, it's not going to end there, right? Whoever is dissatisfied with the outcome tomorrow can still take further step.
Yeah, of course, getting justice has different layers. As far as presidential elections are concerned in Nigeria, I think we've explained that severally. The Court of Appeal serves as the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, starts there and ends at the Supreme Court, which is the last level. The Court of Appeal, of course, has 180 days, which is like 6 months, to hear all petitions and, of course, give judgment. The last day of the 180 days is September 16th, but the court has decided, choose tomorrow, September 6th, for their judgment. So all fingers crossed. But like we all know, it will not eventually end at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, which is the appeal court. It don't go to the wire, so we might have the Supreme Court give a final judgment on all of these petitions. So of course, the Supreme Court has only 60 days, which is an average of like 2 months, to sort itself out and give judgment on every petition that will come before it. That's at the presidential level. But for the governorship elections, we have several states. We're also expecting that tribunals in the different states will also be giving judgment this month. But that has 3 layers. It starts from the court at the state level, it gets to the appeal court, and eventually to the Supreme Court. For the assembly elections, that has 2 levels. That starts at the state level, the tribunals at the state level, and ends at the appeal court. So these are the different layers for election petitions in Nigeria. And so I think the most important thing is for us to understand that this is part of our democratic process. We have to allow it to endure. Whatever comes out of the court, so be it. We move on with it and get better.
All right, thank you very much, Fuad. Please be reminded also that we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, so you could definitely participate via those platforms as well. So please look at us on Facebook, Mainland 98.3 FM. Yes, that's how you find us on Facebook and YouTube, Mainland 98.3 FM. We're streaming live, so please connect with us via Facebook. Now, back to the Guardian newspaper. The top story here: bold reform leaves Nigerians more miserable amid assurances. There's also something of a pictorial representation of all the many policies of the president in his 100 days in office: the fuel subsidy removal, the foreign exchange liberalization, Emefiele's arrest and prosecution, as well as investigation into ministries, departments, and agencies, the appointment of service chiefs, the student loan scheme, the dissolution of the MDA boards, appointment of ministers. There's also the Niger crisis and its impact on us as a nation, the rising inflation, the high fuel prices, the bloated cabinet, the spike in living cost, and shrinking household incomes. That's pretty much, they've been able to separate these things one after the other, events that have occurred in the first 100 days of the newly elected President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let's go to page 6 and look at the story in itself. Excuse me. So we do have here in the Guardian newspaper, riders to the story: World Bank subsidy removal makes 7.1 million Nigerians poorer. Also, economists score president high on pro-market reforms. Hardship is short-term pain of removal of historic distortions, says Muda Yusuf. President has demonstrated rare courage with economic reforms, says Dons. Threat by Labour complicating government woes. 45 ministers raise question about administration's commitment to efficiency. Those are the riders to the story. Now, just 100 days since President Bola Tinubu took up the reins, he may have pulled millions of poor Nigerians below where his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, left them May 29 on poverty. Tinubu said the economic reforms of the last 3 months, including fuel subsidy removal and foreign exchange liberalization, would rescue the country from the control of tiny elite and improve the lives of over 200 million citizens. But the reality is not near to the promises that he would eventually bring us to out of poverty. So just to summarize, it's a very comprehensive report, and we definitely cannot read through everything, but they've highlighted a lot of the changes that we have experienced since he assumed office. And now I'm talking about the president. They spoke about the price of fuel going from 185 to 600, 700 in some places. They spoke about his plan to give 10 million Nigerians 8,000 naira. It was initially 5,000 naira. They also referenced the 133 million people in multidimensional poverty, and as it stands, 7.1 million people might become even poorer and be on that list. Also spoke about fuel distribution through the Lagos port and the fact that that has discontinued. So moving fuel through the Lagos port is not active at the moment, so most of the marketers have to use road transportation, and the safety net was subsidy, and that has been removed as well. We have spoken about what we are trading, the naira to the dollar, that's broken the 900 naira per dollar ceiling, amongst other things. Yes, but we have economists who are still confident in this decision that the president has made. They believe that this is just temporary suffering for something of an El Dorado at the end of the day. The house cleaning, the tax payment is a lot of things. So Fuad, would you support the position of the economists who are confident that regardless of whatever hardship we're going through now, if we're patient and we trust in the policy of the government, we would enjoy all of this at the end of the day?
Well, see, first and foremost, I like to thank and acknowledge the hard work of the political desk of the Guardian newspaper, bringing all of these issues to the fore, highlighting them, making them a point for us to talk about almost every day, the reality of Nigerians as a result of the subsidy removal. Now, Sage, the economists, you would always have to understand their thinking pattern. These are people who are completely capitalist in their orientation. See, this is not the first time we have had economic experts give advice to our government in Nigeria that has eventually made the situation of the country worse. During the military era, we had a lot of experts from World Bank, IMF, coming with different ideas for how to restore our economy, and what happened eventually. Nigeria became worse for it. I can never forget the structural adjustment program, some of the advice about dividing our currency, and a lot of times. So we have had professionals, so-called economic experts, give government wrong advice that have impoverished Nigerians in the past. So this is not new. This is the reality. Say we have a government, yes, who is engaging in what you can call bold reforms, as put by the Guardian newspaper. But the question is, how intelligent are those bold reforms? Because you can have very foolish bold reforms, you can have very intelligent bold reforms, you can have very pragmatic bold reforms. You cannot make reforms in isolation, even though you think it is bold. Any reform that you do that further impoverishes your people is no bold reform for me, or it's an unintelligent bold reform. The reality is that we have a government now, with all of the advice coming from the experts, that is looking more at figures, looking more at raising the revenue of government. I think every day they wake up and see new figures. They see figures and that's their target. But the question is this: after all of the figures, after the government is able to take all of this money, I think recently a World Bank report has said that, look, in the next 1 or 2 years, the government should be able to save about 10 trillion naira from all of these reforms. And my big question is this: say, after the government saves all of this money, what happens? Corruption swallows everything. And the people are left what? Further impoverished. They are left poor or poorer, as it is, as also highlighted in this particular report. Yes, it is good that the government is looking at the figures. It is good that the government is reforming the economy to ensure that there is some level of self-sufficiency in our revenue. But the question is this: with the level of corruption we have in the country, how are we sure that after making all of this money, after, making Nigerians go through what I can call intensive level of suffering and all of that, we can trust the government to judiciously use the money that has been saved, going by the level of corruption we have in the country? If you look at the riders from the newspaper, say, look, the fact that we are even talking about 48 ministers shows that the government, number one, is not committed to reducing the cost of governance. We have not even seen anything to show that the government is ready to tackle the monster, the either-headed monster of corruption in the country. Because look, no matter what you say from these reforms, no matter the money you are able to put together from these reforms, say, if we are not intentional about tackling corruption, reducing the cost of governance, correcting our electoral processes, nothing would happen. All of these monies would eventually end in private pockets, and we go back to saying the same old story of no roads, no good education, no good health infrastructure. It's going to be the same old thing because all of this money, corruption is standing on the sidelines to swallow it up all. So, again, these reforms are coming. Nigerians are suffering. The pain is excruciating. Things are not getting better. People cannot access affordable health. Education has become too expensive. Infrastructure is bad. No potable water. Power has become a problem. Yes, the government looking at figures, but the question is this: can we trust them to deliver for the people? That has always been my question, and it's still my question this morning.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Fuad. Because of time, we might not be able to look through every single policy and its implication, but it's highlighted in that report that has been put together by the Guardian newspaper. So just look at page 6 of today's copy of the Guardian newspaper. You'd have an insight into every single detail of this report. Please, it's not time to take phone calls. Inena, it's not time to take phone calls. Wait for us to get through the papers so that you have something to contribute. You have to get the stories first. So please wait. Let's get through the report. When it's time to take contributions, we will open the phone lines. Thank you so much for your patience. Now, moving forward, the Guardian newspaper, another report that we have here: apprehension as Labour begins a warning strike. Court rules on presidential election. This is also on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Riders to this: DSS alleges sabotage, violent protest nationwide. Tinubu holds emergency meeting with service chiefs ahead of trip to India. Federal government appeals for more time as union directs bank workers to join strike. NLC boycotts meeting with Labour Minister. TUC gives Tinubu 1 week to address wage awards. NANS warned DSS against clampdown on students protesting harsh policies. Now, amid the cloud of uncertainties arising from today's grounding of the economy, with the 2-day warning strike by organized labor and tomorrow's judgment to be delivered by the Presidential Election Petition Court, security chiefs were yesterday summoned to an emergency meeting with President Bola Tinubu. The security chiefs did not disclose what was discussed at the meeting and also did not talk about the fresh directive they got from the president ahead of his trip to India for the G20 summit. Now, according to the DSS spokesman, Peter Afunaya, intelligence reports have indicated that some plotters of violent protest, including certain politicians, are desperately mobilizing unsuspecting student leaders and ethnic-based associates and disgruntled youths for the planned action. And they've identified the ringleader of the plot and have sustained monitoring around them in order to stop them from plunging the country into anarchy. So this is two stories in one. They're referring to the outcome of the tribunal on Wednesday, and the DSS has claimed to have uncovered a plot by certain individuals and politicians to, subvert the rule of law tomorrow. FUHAD, is this just something that happens frequently? These are just regular statements that come out from security operatives anytime there's any national event coming up.
Yeah, if my memory serves me right, Sage, I think it's about the third or fourth time that we have had the DSS raise these kinds of alarm. I think the recent one was during the subsidy protest by the Labour Congress. I think the other one was before the inauguration of the new president on May 29th. And for me, I keep saying that, look, if the DSS has information about people who are ready to cause social disobedience, cause anarchy in the land, and there are facts to it, instead of just making announcements and making statements, I think the right thing to do is to go after them and arrest them. If you look at the report now, they've talked about the fact that they are aware of the ringleader, they know him, they are aware that they are already sharing money, mobilizing people. I see what the DSS is supposed to do as a secret service security agency is to swoop on these guys and arrest them and also put them for prosecution, for trying to cause social disobedience, to cause anarchy in the land. But be that as it may, the reality is that there's tension in the land, irrespective of the fact that the Labour Congress, they are down into everywhere. It's so fancy. The roads are so free, Sage. Yeah. It's looking as if it's a public holiday. School children are not even going to school, just a few of them on the road as we speak. So naturally there's tension on the land. There's a lot of apprehension too. The petition tribunal would also be giving judgment tomorrow. That's also adding to the tension and apprehension in the land, if you understand what I mean. So naturally there's tension. Everybody is tensed up. The economic situation is not making matters any better. And I think that it's understandable where the DSS is coming from. The president had to meet with security chiefs yesterday. It was a closed-door meeting. Details of that meeting was not announced. But again, all in all, I think we need to tell our politicians is that, look, they had better be very fast about whatever they are doing. Nigerians are getting they are getting more and more impatient with the government. Because again, it's difficult to survive, I must tell you. Even for those of us who have just been trying to manage, get up every day, try to go to work, I know, the extent of pain we have to go through just to survive. I was telling one of our colleagues yesterday, schools have resumed now, and everybody is reaching out to anybody, anywhere for support. Somebody just told me this morning, he said Nigerians have actually become beggars. Begging for money, begging for support, everybody trying to reach out to one another. I think the appeal that I've always made is that this is the time for Nigerians to stand with one another. We need to support ourselves through this period, take care of ourselves, help in the best possible way. Things are not looking good, And I think we have to continue to repeat this and hopefully get the people in government to understand that is the reality of Nigerians at this time. Things are looking very, very, very tough. Just a few days ago, I visited Last Foot, you know, to visit a friend's relative that was admitted there. The situation is so bad. The cost of prescription drugs, the tests that you have to do, you know, people, you know, practically you see people looking very tense and are struggling really to get, you know, meaningful living out of the situation of Nigeria at this time. So I think government needs to understand that and do something very fast. You can't expect labor to just hold their arms and keep quiet. The TUC has given 1 week now. After 1 week, what happened? As we speak, the government has not been able to put anything on the table for the organized labor. Minimum wage issue not yet resolved. A lot of the demands of labor, nothing practically, not one of those demands have been met by the government. Even the one of palliative, even though I'm totally against palliative in the form of sharing rice and beans, even that one has been so disorganized and coordinated. You know, you hear 5 billion today, you hear 2 billion tomorrow. Like we said, if the government announced 5 billion and have just released 2 billion because they think it will cause inflation. So it is when it concerns the poor that the government talks about inflation. What about the money that has been shared by the political class? Is that not causing inflation? So say the government needs to wake up. There's tension in the land and they need to do something very fast.
Mm-hmm. Well, regarding the strike by the NLC, there have been statements by the presidential spokesperson, 𝗪𝗛𝗪 𝗪𝗪𝗪. He says, first things first, we shouldn't mix politics and labor issues. He's also saying that the NLC is a labor body and they're not the only ones that constitute the organized labor. That the TUC and NLC were at the initial meeting, right? And if the TUC is willing to give the government some 1 to 2 weeks to put things in place, they do not understand why the NLC is unwilling, you know, to get on board, be patient, and accept more dialogue. They're saying that they're reassuring Nigeria. That's Simon Lalong now, the labor minister, saying that they're assuring Nigerian workers that the Nigerian government will never take them for granted nor fail to appreciate their support. He's saying that the conditions for assessing the 70 billion naira intervention fund for MSME is just being fine-tuned by the government, and all the other demands in a space of 2 weeks unfailingly, and they would have the results that would make everybody happy. With this new statement, at least now this is a new minister, right? He's a new guard. I would like to think so. Yes, he's always been a part of the system, but he's new in the labor sector. With this statement and assurances that in 2 weeks, if you can just be patient, that things will fall in place, and it would be more difficult if we have a disrupted labor sector. It will be difficult to put in place the plans that the government have. What do you think about that?
Before I address the labor minister's position, I like to talk about Mr. 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪's position.
Yeah.
Trying to mix politics with labor activism. I think Mr. 𝗪𝗪𝗪 needs to be very careful. I understand that he's a spokesperson of the government and he wants to do his job. But I found that he's probably going to run into trouble if he's not very careful with the Nigerian people. Because every time he tries to be too intelligent for comfort when he says, it comes up with positions that are averagely ridiculous most of the time, and the manner at which he puts out his idea. You know, recently he was the one comparing the price of PMS with other West African countries.
Yeah, that don't produce
and I just look at him and I shake my head.
Non-oil producing countries to
you know, with countries that don't have anything crude oil. You know, how do you make that kind of comparison? Just, you know, it's even better as a spokesperson to keep quiet and to say things that will further infuriate the people. The reality is that, look, whatever the labor is doing now is completely different from politics. The idea of trying to now, you know,
FUHAD, we can barely hear you. It's a little muffled.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes,
any
this
better
is
now?
better, yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that the idea of trying to paint all of the activities of labor now in the form of politics, you say, oh, it's all political, does not make sense to me. You know, see, the reality is that even if you remove labor from the equation, what of Nigerians? Okay, all of Nigerians that are complaining now, are they also political in their complaint? Is it about politics now? Or about the reality of Nigerians and Nigerians are suffering? So, like I said, it is better for the government to really address, you know, this request of Nigerians and see how to reduce the pain and suffering of the average Nigerian at this time. And then for the labor minister who is demanding for time, it's understandable. He has just come in. That's what you expect him to say. Again, if the TUC wants to understand the government has given 1 week, so be it. If the labor leaders want a 2 days warning strike, so be it. It will gain their right. What we are just saying is that It is time for the government to step up, wake up, rise up, and listen to the cries and yearning of the people that has come as a result of the actions and inactions of government, and quickly put things in place to reduce this suffering. There's a lot of trust deficit, between ordinary Nigerians and government. This idea of, oh, don't worry, things will be better in the future. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, we are making these reforms to ensure things get better. But you look at activities of government, you look at their body language, you look at the things they do, the things they say, and you are not completely sure that, look, after going through this period of suffering, they will deliver the goods for you. Is it the way the National Assembly carries itself? Is it the way funds are being appropriated? The fact that we have over-bloated ministers and cabinet members? Nothing has changed. Government has still, all of these governors who have now moved to the National Assembly are still receiving those bogus pensions. The allowances are still very huge. Sage, if you tell me tomorrow will be good, I have to see the indication of that tomorrow from today, isn't it?
Right.
So, again, it's all promises from government. Nigerians want to begin to see them putting up actionable plans that will eventually reduce their suffering and give them that better tomorrow. Nothing is on ground yet to show any better tomorrow.
Fuad, thank you very much. Page 6 of the Guardian newspaper, you get more information regarding that report. If you're just joining us, this is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. All we're doing is reviewing our dailies. We're reviewing the newspapers, giving you the headlines, and also having brief conversations about the different headlines. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Live on Facebook and YouTube. Mainland 98.3 FM is how you find us. Just go to Facebook, type in Mainland 98.3 FM, you would immediately be directed to our streaming platform. You can leave your submissions on there in case you want to address certain headlines here and you don't want to forget before we get to Mainland Focus where we open the phone lines. Just leave the messages on Facebook. We'll get to it when it's time to take contributions. It's 7 minutes past 8 a.m. here in the city of Lagos, and you're still listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Sage BABALOLA. I also have Fuad Said here with me via the phone line giving analysis to these headlines. Still in the Guardian, we have Tinubu not to blame. Buhari plunged economy into crisis, says Sanusi. Speaking of activities of the government, Fuad, now the former Emir of Kano, Mohammed Sanusi, has said it would be unfair of him to criticize President Bola Tinubu over current economic hardship being faced by Nigerians. He said a lot of things, but I'll just quote out some because of time. He says, I have over the years talked about the pending crisis ahead of the current economic hardship. Any economist who have studied monetary policy in the last 8 years knows that Nigerians will fall into this difficult situation. The previous administration turned adamant about our appeal for corrective measures on economic policies. If I am to be fair and just President Bola Tinubu, if I'm to be fair and just to President Bola Tinubu, he is not to blame for the current hardship for 8 years. We were living on fake lifestyle with huge debt and domestic debts. The Central Bank of Nigeria owes over 30 trillion naira, which resulted in debt service surpassing 100%. I can only plead with the people to endure with the hardship, and those that have the means to help the downtrodden should do so. I am also pleading with commoners to live according to their earnings. We must not peg our lives above our earnings in this difficult situation. He said more than that, okay? I just took out certain parts of what he says. So basically, he's saying maybe we should not blame this current administration too much for what we're experiencing at the moment. He believes the past administration, they might not have been very diligent in their expenditure, or should I say in their financial management strategy. And now he's appealing to the people, maybe try to live within your means and adjust to the reality of our financial situation in the country. Fuad, are you for or against?
Sage, when the 𝗵𝗃 came in 2015, the narrative was the 16 years of the PDP, 16 years of the PDP, 16 years of the PDP. The first 4 years was about complaints and finger pointing, name dropping, and blame game all through for 4 years. Eventually, after 4 years, the second term came. I must tell you that, the 8 years of the Buhari government took us several years backwards. Now, I must say this. It's difficult for me to talk about party politics now when it comes to governance in Nigeria from 1999 till date. If you understand what I'm saying, whether to say, okay, this is PDP government or APC government, because in between these two major political parties, you have had politicians move around. So it's almost difficult for you to say this is even PDP, this is APC. Except for maybe President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and a number of politicians that have not moved around between the PDP and the APC. You have had people, so you have, for example, the former chairman of the APC used to be a PDP member. And so you have a lot of members who have moved around. And so what I would say is that let us even do a dissection, a proper analysis of governance from 1999 till date, and ask ourselves, what have we gotten from it? It's easy for Emir Sanusi, former Emir Sanusi, now to say, oh, don't blame this current administration, blame the past administration, just be patient with this. I don't think it's a comfortable excuse. I said it. No Nigerian would take any excuse from this government. Because they knew what the situation was before, demanding for the votes of Nigerians to govern them. So the idea of, it was something that happened in the past. They knew the situation of things before, for example, the president decided I was going to run and become president. So for me, honestly, this narrative of trying to blame or not blame does not hold water. The question is, what is our current situation? Was the president and these politicians, were they all aware of the situation before they demanded for the votes of Nigerians to govern them? The question and the thing we should be talking about is that what exactly are they doing about it? Before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came to power, he was a member of the APC, one of the leaders of the party. Even though people have said that, well, he was only being politically correct for keeping quiet for 8 years without really sticking true to power, to President Muhammad Buhari about the things he had done or not done. But now he's in power. What we are demanding from them is to correct those wrongs. And what we are saying is that in their approach to correcting the things that the last government did that did not do well, we are already seeing them also having a false start, and lack of direction, and lack of purpose. That's what we are saying. We all knew that our refineries were not working. We all knew that the subsidy was fraught with corruption. We all knew that we had infrastructure deficit. We all knew that corruption was at the highest in the land. We all knew we had a revenue problem. These were all the things we knew before the last election. And so instead of talking about what had happened in the past, I think we should talk about the present and what this government is trying to do to correct what had happened in the past. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be buying the idea of what had happened in the past as an excuse. This government, in fact, the president said, don't pity me. I demanded for the job. So I think we should be reviewing and evaluating him on what he has done so far. It's about 100 days since he became president. And we should evaluate him based on what he has been able to do so far. He demanded for the job. So again, we are seeing a lot of false starts. We are seeing a lot of government policies that we think didn't come as a result of thorough thinking and analysis. We are seeing a government that seems to lack proper planning in responding to the yearnings and sufferings of the people. And that's what we are talking about here. And that's why we are demanding for the government to quickly put things in place that will show that indeed there is direction as far as this government is concerned. We will not buy any excuse at this time. I think Nigerians are not going to buy any excuse from this government.
Page 3 of the Guardian newspaper, you find details of that particular story. Now, let's go to page 5. We have here, Sanwo-Olu flags off commercial operations of Lagos Blue Line Rail. Says President will commission Red Line Rail project before December 31st. So, the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu yesterday flagged off commercial operations of the Blue Line Rail in the state. Sanwo-Olu, who arrived at the train station, implored the guests and other passengers to be orderly as well as obey the instructions to make the journey smooth. He has also said the Red Line Rail project will be commissioned by the president and the commissioning will be done before the end of the year. So a laudable event by the Lagos State government, I believe. And also, FUHAD, I know you mentioned the other projects as well and the commencement. Now they've given us a timeline as to when the other phases of the train line project would commence, and the Red Line is set to be commissioned before the 31st of December this year. So should we expect better transportation structure in Lagos State?
Well, Sage, I'm someone that understands the idea of counting the cost. It's a good one. Eventually, the first phase of the Blue Rail Line has commenced operation. Just the first phase. Like I said, the entire stretch from Marina to Okokomaiko is supposed to be the complete stretch, and it's supposed to be a rail line that's supposed to even get to other West African countries through Badagry. That will probably be the more elaborate part of the project. But what I'm saying is that at almost 20 years, this is how much we have been able to achieve. There are timelines to the red rail. I think I was discussing with 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝗀𝗧, was it 𝗪𝗵𝗁 or Sandra, yesterday about the intermodal transport system of Lagos State. And that's what you are expecting, what you are supposed to get in any mega city, functional mega city of the world. You know, what you have a proper intermodal transport system where you have the bus rapid transit working effectively and covering all routes. You have light rail connecting different parts of the city. You have what is even called tram running and connecting inner cities, inner parts of the city. You have cable cars. You have, you know, the ferry services also working very well. You know, the good thing about Lagos State is that water transportation is supposed to be one of the best transportation for Lagos, because the Lagos Lagoon touches every part of Lagos. That's the beauty of Lagos. All the 5 divisions of Lagos, the Lagos Lagoon touches all of those 5 divisions at different ends. So one would expect that, look, the ferry services are supposed to also help with transportation in Lagos. What we have is now, in Lagos, is a very disorganized ferry service. The blue rail is just from Marina now to Mile 2. There's still a lot of work to do to get it to Okokomaiko and probably extend it to Badagry. The red rail is ongoing. You can see that the work is speeding up very fast. But there are also other ones. You have the green, you have the yellow, and I think you have the purple rails that are supposed to also come. So again, what we are saying is that, look, this has happened. We need to do more. We need to do more because, again, we are looking at the revenue that comes to Lagos, what we earn as to what is being delivered to us. We need to check to see that, okay, what accrues to Lagos in terms of revenue? Are we getting what is commensurate with what comes to Lagos in terms of revenue? And when I say revenue now, I'm talking about our IGR in Lagos. That's about 50 to 70 billion every month. Our federal government allocation that comes every month, and humongous borrowing. Because it's the most indebted state in Nigeria, and I'm sure you know it.
Yes. Well,
so we need to ask us.
They say that, you know, the progress that we've made as a state somewhat justifies the fact that Lagos is the highest.
We can argue that it doesn't, you know. But I don't want us to go too much into that.
Okay.
If we are truly to count the cost in Lagos, say, we are going to open different kind of worms. But I don't want us to go towards that direction. But I'm saying that, look, going forward, can we allow the money of Lagos work for Lagos? That's what I'm saying now.
Okay.
Can we begin to see proper deployment of the resources of Lagos to transform Lagos and make it a functional mega city? Can we see a situation where the IGR of Lagos begins to transform the infrastructure of Lagos, you know, to put Lagos alongside other functional mega cities of the world? Lagos is a mega city because of our population. The infrastructure of Lagos does not represent or present it as a functional mega city. So we need to begin to count the cost and make the resources of Lagos work for Lagos. That's what I'm saying.
All right, then. Page 3 of the Guardian newspaper, you get more information. Let's look at this final headline here. Gabon coup leader General 𝗪𝗪𝘁𝗀𝗪 sworn in as interim president. I guess we would shed more light on this during a global view, but regardless, let's just say something about it briefly. General Brice Oligui Nguema, who led the coup last week that toppled Gabon's 55-year-old dynasty, took the oath of office as interim president on Monday. He has pledged for free and transparent elections after a transition period. He did not specify how long the transition period is going to be, but then he has been sworn in. And there's also reference to the Niger coup. Apparently, Niger have reopened their airspace. They shut it down after all the threat and economic sanctions, you know, followed the coup. But then they reopened their airspace, and General 𝗪𝗪𝘁𝗪𝗪 has been sworn in as interim president of Gabon. FUHAD.
Yes, okay. Sorry, before the Gabon thing, I forgot this on transportation in Lagos.
Yeah.
You can't have a mega city, say, in the stature of Lagos, and you have this 𝗪𝗪𝗁 syndrome.
Right.
This is also one thing the government needs to look into. Governor 𝗪𝗵𝗁𝗁𝗪 started the bus reforms initiative for Lagos, which was supposed to have Lagos have what you can call a fully functional, public transportation system, where probably we see a gradual phase out of the yellow buses. The reality is that some of these drivers can also invest in the bus reforms initiative. So it's not as if you are taking the yellow buses away and making them jobless. They will also be part of the entire bus reforms initiative. And we need to solve the 𝗪𝗵𝗁 problem. You can't call Lagos a functional mega city, and you have people holding sticks and then harassing people jumping up and down on our streets. It's shameful. Go to other mega cities of the world, you can never see anything like that. And again, the monies we make from the parks and garages, where does those monies go into? Where you have non-state actors living larger than life. I keep saying it. The monies the 𝗪𝗵𝗁 collect in Lagos can fix our roads in Lagos. So that's also one thing we need to continue to talk about as far as public transportation is concerned in Lagos. And then on the issue of Gabon, very fast. Now there's a new interim leader. It's called an interim leader. So one is expecting that in a few days now, it's going to announce a transition period. Of course, we have gotten stories of the fact that it's actually a fourth cousin of former President Ali Bongo. But I think what Gabonese have decided to do with how Ali Bongo was eased out of power was that, look, let's just get somebody new and then we begin to reorganize our electoral process. I'm hoping that this general will not come in now and then begin to create a process that wants to keep him in power. I'm hoping that maybe in a few days we'll see him announce a transition program. Maybe come up with another, because again, the opposition in Gabon are saying that the last election was fraught with a lot of corruption and it should be revisited. Maybe another round of elections to now bring in a democratically elected leader for Gabon. Maybe that's what will happen, but it's too early to say that. Let's see what the new general will do.
Yes, so we'll get more insight. Yes, you get more insight on that. A global view that would be by 9:45
We'll talk more about that. Yeah.
Yes. So now let's go to the Nation newspaper. Federal government TUC strike over subsidy payments not needed now. That's what the federal government and TUC is saying. We've also looked at the tribunal verdict on poll Tinubu Obi confidence. Now let's go to stories we haven't reviewed. Page 30 of the Nation. Sanwo-Olu drops 5 a new nominee list to Assembly. So we're going back to Lagos State. 5 names were dropped in the new list of commissioner nominees sent by Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to the House of Assembly. The Speaker, Mudashiru Obasa, has directed the screening committee, led by Chief Whip Fatai Mojeed, to reconvene and start screening the nominees as from today. I'm pretty sure that we remember the 17 rejected names of the 39 that were sent by the governor. Well, 5 names have been submitted to replace 5 out of the 17 that were rejected. I would like to give out the names, but I'm trying to be very time conscious. I guess
let's not bother with names.
Yes, but 5 names have been submitted.
The major ones that have been represented now includes Professor King-Abayomi, the Commissioner for Health, and our own Benga Motosho, the former Commissioner for Information. They make the list of people that are now resubmitted out of the old 17. So it means out of the 17, 14 resubmitted, 5. Out of the old 17, 5, then 12 of the old came back. 5 new names have now come in. We've seen movements. We've seen the governor visit the First Lady. We saw Basa also visiting the First Lady. A lot of political movements have happened since what happened the last time. I think everything is also as a result of political considerations now. Somehow the politicians have met. They've been able to harmonize their differences and align and realign. But I'm sure now that this screening will be done and all of these people will now be confirmed as commissioners. But that's not the most important thing. As a Lagosian, the question is, how does that bring good governance to Lagos State? How does that ensure that Lagos becomes a fully functional mega city? How does that transform the health sector in Lagos? I want to drive on Lagos road, both the major and inner road, and drive on good roads. Would these new commissioners do the needful for Lagos? Those are the questions for me. They can confirm all of them because it's all political consideration. But we are more about good governance for Lagos. Lagos deserves good governance. Lagos has got the potential far more than what the government is giving to us.
Thank you very much, Fuad. That's on page 30 of the Nation newspaper. Now let's double back to page 29. The headline reads, CBN loan to government, the most expensive to service. The federal government has said that the money it borrowed from the CBN is the most expensive debt it is servicing. Currently, the federal government is servicing 23 trillion CBN ways and means with over 2 trillion naira. This disclosure was made by the technical advisor to the Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, that is Professor Olumide Ayodele. According to him, the government paid the CBN over 2 trillion in debt servicing, and it is more expensive to borrow from the CBN than even to borrow abroad. FUHAD.
We talked about the ways and means, how the last administration was overshooting the constitutional requirement of 5% of your previous earnings. It's unfortunate that, again, a lot of things in terms of our financial situation has gone really, really bad. There was a lot of brazenness and impunity as far as the management of our resources and our finance in the last administration. So this is just for sake of information. If it is too expensive now to run CBN loan as the government, they look at other means. I think that's why all of these reforms are coming. The government is looking at a more sustainable ways of generating money and revenue. But in doing that, what we are saying is that don't kill the people.
Right.
Let the people breathe.
Apparently, they are paying 20.7% in interest rates. That anytime the MPC they raise the interest rates, they are obliged to pay times 2. Like they have, for example, it's 18.75% normally at CBN rates, but the federal government have to pay 20.75. They have to pay times 2 of whatever the MPR is. I don't know how they were able to. I don't know why they're doing that, but like you said, this is just for sake of knowledge and for sake of information. This is on page 29 of The Nation. Very briefly, forward in a minute. Tolling of federal highways to go on, says Umahi. The tolling of federal highways across the country is to start soon. This is according to the Works Minister, David Umahi. He says the first phase of certain roads, federal roads, the concession of these federal roads will begin soon, and that is 12 economically viable roads. And once they have been concessioned, tolling will begin on those federal roads. Very briefly, Fuad.
Yeah, tolling is not a problem. We remember the last time that the government of 𝗬𝗊𝗁 𝗪𝗶𝗪 dismantled all the toll gates. Some of us criticized it as just lack of tact and good thinking from the government. Although the excuse then was that, the toll gates were fraught with all manner of corruption, there was lack of accountability and all of that. But if you have tolls, what happens is that, look, the concession, you're able to maintain the roads. Whatever monies you also make, you're able to expand and put more infrastructure and also build more roads. So I don't have a problem with toll gates, really. It's just about accountability and that, look, let's look at concessions that will ensure that we build more roads, maintain the ones that we have built now, and then, like the Commissioner for Works is saying, we begin to look at the concrete technology so that we can have long-lasting roads. He's talked about that. I buy the idea. I think it's a very good one. And so we should work towards, building roads that can last for years, not the ones that after 10 years, water comes, we have to continue to rebuild those roads. So it's not a problem that we want to toll. Let's toll, but build more roads for people.
Right.
That we can move around and do our business easily.
Page 29 of The Nation newspaper is where you find that particular report. Now, very briefly, let's read through the headlines that we have on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper and a Punch. NLC shuns meeting with federal government, starts 2-day warning strike. Bola Tinubu, a president in need of help. This is an editorial on the front page of the Vanguard. If you like to read it, go on ahead. Presidential poll, Tinubu, Atiku, Obi knows fate tomorrow. Strike, presidential poll verdict, DSS raises alarm over violent protest. Moving now to the Punch newspaper, the headlines read, military, police warn protesters as tribunal delivers verdict on Wednesday. Subsidy pains, Labour vows to ground economy, begins strike. Reps summon 6 ministries, departments and agencies over federal government asset sale. Also here, foreign investors repatriated $5 billion dividend, says the CBN. 4 suspects arrested for torturing trainee internet fraudsters. And finally, 40 years after Buhari's suspension, Lagos Light Rail begins operations. And that is it for Trends in the Papers for this morning. Thank you for going along with us. We're going to go on a brief break, all right, a brief commercial break. When we're back by 8:40 a.m., we're going to get straight into Mainland Focus, where we're going to pick about 2-3 stories and give you an opportunity to comment on the selected stories. My name is Sage Babalola. Thank you, FUHAD, for being on standby. But don't tune off. 8:40, like I said, we'll be back for Mainland Focus. This is the sound of Lagos, Mainland 98.3 FM.
98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
The Broadcast Art Institute Supplementary Admissions 2022-2023. Few vacancies exist in the Departments of Broadcast Journalism and Multimedia Technology for admission in the 2022-2023 session. If you scored 100 and above in the 2022-2023 UTME and have 5 relevant credits and have not gained admission, you can change over to the Broadcast Art Institute Lagos for National Diploma in Broadcast Journalism and Multimedia Technology. The Broadcast Art